Okay, so for the people, for the people at home, this is our Saint Paddy's Day episode, and we're gonna make a drink that stems from racism. So,
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't know
explain
that.
that.
Interesting.
well, I can't, but you sure can.
Well, no
'Cause
one knows
I don't
this.
understand it well
So
enough.
before we kick it, we gotta do this.
Listen to some Dropkick Murphys. Hell yeah!
You know, if we're gonna Irish out. We'll let this ride while you make the drinks, and then I'll explain what the controversy is.
Why am I trying to picture what movie this is from, and I can't put it together?
Boondock Saints.
Boondock Saints. That's right.
Because this sailor pig lost his leg. That's what he said.
Guinness is kind of like a chocolate milk.
It's a super dark beer, like very frothy. That's what I've been told.
So,
This will actually be my first Guinness, so we're breaking the.
I used to work at an
Don't
Irish
don't
bar.
don't set a world record.
I used to work at an Irish bar called the Flatiron. Shout out to Ryan James and the rest of the crew. Dave, Steele, those are the two owners. And we had a bartender that was very, very Irish. His name was Shane. And St. Patrick's Day was like the worst day ever to work because it was so busy. And this was like the quintessential Irish bar in Cleveland. And St. Patrick's Day was mandatory staff. And so I can always remember Shane, when people would order Irish car bombs, he would not sell them to people that ordered them as Irish car bombs, because Irish car bombs is basically, the reason that they call it that is because during, the revolutionary Irish stuff that was going on between the Catholics and the Protestants, you had the IRA setting up car bombs to blow people up. And he refused to make the drink because at the end of the day, you're glorifying war, ultimately. Terrorism,
yeah.
pretty much. And so that's why Irish car bombs, he would be like, if you want a Bailey's and Guinness, I'll serve you
that
that.
happen,
But
yeah.
you can't call it an Irish car bomb. So that was the first thing. And then to answer your question about Guinness, so Guinness is one of the only beers, not only, but for a while, that they don't use CO2 when it comes out of the keg. They use nitrous.
Interesting.
That's what creates that like frothy mouthfeel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're making beer, and I only know this because I'm a home brewer,
This will be mine.
people who drink dark beer think that it's like heavier or that it's like stronger. But at the end of the day, when you're making beer, you're steeping the sugar from malted barley.
Mm-hmm.
And just like if you were making toast in a toaster, the more you toast the bread or the barley is just going to create that darker look and give it more of like a burnt taste.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing. In fact, Guinness is only like 4% alcohol, and it's only like I think it's like 100 calories.
Right.
So it's pretty low in calories and low in ABV. But people see a dark beer and they're like, "Oh, that's heavy."
Well, don't they drink it warm?
Yeah, I mean
In
that's like a European thing in general. But I love Guinness. At the end of the night, if I've been boozing like all night long, one of my secret like powers was that I would switch to Guinness, and people be like, "Oh fuck, dude, what are you doing?"
Oh, you hardcore.
Yeah, but really, I was just like bringing down my ABV, and like you could drink Guinness all fucking night.
What kind of fills your stomach up?
That too. I mean, it is filling because of the nitrous.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of air,
It
a lot of fluff
expands.
to it. Yeah. But I dig Guinness, man. I think it's great. And like I said, I don't know if it was the first beer, but I know it was one of the first like commercial beers that was doing nitrous. That's why when you see it on tap, it's always on like a different tap with like a different nozzle and everything like that. So are we doing this?
All right. I already messed mine up, so I'll take the middle one. I think.
So don't you like?
Well, technically,
It's like
you don't do a whole Guinness like that, and you drink the entire thing.
Okay, now we're just dumping it in like a cocktail.
So if you wanted to do it right, we would drop those and chug the entire glass.
We'll drop them and
I would
enjoy
not
it
be
as
able
a
to do
regular
that.
beer.
I'll hit it as hard as I can for y'all.
If you can do at least
We'll see what
three-fourths
happens.
of it, I'll be impressed.
I'll take like 3
Which
sips.
one am I going for?
Probably not the one that I just mutilated.
All right.
All right. Here's to
So
Ireland.
count at 3. Oh. All right. Fuck it. Giddy up.
Okay, that was a pretty smooth little dip right there, I must say.
I'm gonna dunk mine too. Let's go. Cheers,
Salud.
gentlemen.
Woo.
St. Paddy's.
Saint Paddy's.
You know what? That's pretty good.
God, Matt's hitting
It's a
it.
different flavor than I
Oh.
expected.
I tried.
You know, so I have a Irish question.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe this is just me underthinking the idea, but
Dude, you did more than 3/4. I'm
Tried.
impressed.
Why
That
is
was
it-
pretty good.
why is it okay to make fun of Irish like as a race, and it's not a racist hate crime?
Well, for
Because the-
starters, Irish is not a race.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's just. I mean, it's just like a place,
So if you're not being racist, you're being prejudiced.
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
Well,
Having
I don't know if it's
preconceived
okay.
notion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's okay, but you're not being racist. You're being prejudiced if you're making fun of the Irish. But I think it's easy to make fun of the Irish because, you know, they like to. I heard the comment that if God didn't invent Scotch or whiskey, that the Irish would have taken over the world.
Interesting.
In what way? Because they're good at fighting?
I mean, they're good at
Fight
fighting. There's a lot of inventions that have come out of that culture and everything like that. They tend to be, intelligent people overall. But just like anything, when you have a lot of people, there's a lot of dumb ones too. So,
Well, it's also the potato famine kind of put them on a different trajectory.
well, I think that in the thing about in America, you had all of these Irish people coming over, and I remember learning in history that people like store owners were putting out signs that said NINA, which stood for No Irish Need Apply, because at the time there weren't like labor laws or anything along those lines, and Americans were so sick and tired of Irish people immigrating to the United States, taking jobs and everything like that, that they were like, we're not hiring Irish people.
Have you seen Gangs of New York?
Oh yeah.
Martin Scorsese. That's kind of one of the scenes in the movie. Everyone's coming off the boat and they're immediately getting a job or getting handed a gun to go fight in the Civil War.
I had a gigantic mural of Bill the Butcher in my old office, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And then one day it dawned on me that I had to take it down. It's at my house, but I had to take it down because I realized when you really watch the movie, Bill Butcher was a hardcore racist. He
Well,
was a racist when
like a
think-
super misogynist, like woman
that
beater
too.
as well.
And I was like, this might not be the best place to have a mural. I just looked at it like a Scarface type thing. Scarface he was a bad guy, but he's Tony Montana and it's cool. But then I looked at it like that, thinking like, I'm not trying to say like I want to be Bill the Butcher. I just thought Daniel Day-Lewis was a great actor in the film and everything. But then I was like, gosh, all it's going to take is for one of my clients to come in. Because Bill the Butcher, I hadn't watched the movie in a while, but like he drops N-bombs and everything. Like
it's intense.
he's a bad guy.
Well, I have There Will Be Blood, the poster on my wall. So
That's a
maybe
great movie.
I should reconsider. That's like my favorite movie. Paul Dano in that movie was incredible. But maybe I should reconsider that too because he was kind of not a great guy in that either. So I'm not trying to send the wrong message. with
Yeah.
that on
Well,
my
and again, in
wall.
your office, you kind of want to keep it PC.
True.
So I took it out of the office and I brought it home, and then we haven't hung it up just yet. But Ina doesn't like it, so there's that.
What's the new wall painting?
So Ina paints,
Okay, nice.
and but she doesn't paint her. How do I say this without it sounding rude? She doesn't paint her own stuff. She paints things. So there is a painting that I want her to paint, which is a cowboy on a horse riding into the sunset with a guitar on his back.
Mm-hmm.
She does covers.
Yeah, she does cover paintings, and they're good. They're good. She does a really good
It's an
job.
attention to detail, like
Yeah.
even at that point.
And she knows how to paint, and she has been telling me she's going to paint me this for about 2 years now. But we do have a lot going on, so there's that.
She has
But
other priorities over you. I can imagine.
it's true. It's true. And you know what? I'm not even mad about it because a lot of her priorities are one and the same with mine. So one day.
Are y'all a power couple? Would you describe yourself?
Oh,
as
they're a
that?
big power couple.
I guess. I mean,
Realtor and a lender.
yeah.
She does.
She does the
a lot of
realty, you
business.
do the lending.
Yeah. What defines a power couple?
When both make a good income. And
I don't
then-
think so. I think when they're both like super outgoing and overachieving people, and they've kind of piggyback off of each other, where it's like we're both in this
Bosses in their
together
own
and
right.
also becoming successful at the same time.
Then yeah, we're a power couple. We don't have kids, and so we've both we don't want kids, and we've both kind of have been like, all right, we're gonna really take the time that might be absorbed by children and really focus on, creating. I mean, we enjoy it too. That's the other part of it, So we own 3 properties, and that requires a lot of attention. And obviously, our businesses are intertwined, and it's a good thing. I enjoy it.
I mean, that's admirable. Something that we all aim for in our lives, So
People,
good on you.
yeah.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 39. I'm going to be 40 in 2 months.
And when did you guys meet, you and Enya?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah, we met at a real estate conference, and so I put on these real estate conferences for real estate agents. I'm really big on like education in regards to trying to build real estate agents' businesses, because I identified early on that connecting with a lender is like going to the doctor or the dentist. You
right.
don't really want to do it. It's good for you, but it's not exciting. What is exciting is looking at homes and envisioning yourself like being there and raising a family. So I was like, okay, I'm going to treat my real estate referral partners more like my salespeople, because that's ultimately what they are. How can I build better salespeople? So I invested early on with a organization called the Craig Proctor Coaching. Craig Proctor was the #1 real estate agent for RE/MAX for like 20 years. And then instead of retiring, he decided to go into coaching and basically like give all of his secrets or whatnot. So we do these trainings where we do these half days, which we have one coming up April 24th. It's going to be at the Goosehead Insurance Office off of Mopac. The Roku building is where it's at. And so we put on these half days, and then they do these super conferences for people that ultimately sign up for coaching, and it's in Orlando. And I get the names of all of the people that are going to be there. Although it's like a nationwide thing, I'm only going after the people who are in my local market.
Mm-hmm.
So Ina was one of the agents. I'd never met her. I'd never worked with her or anything, but I knew that she was in Orlando. And so what we do is like I'll rent a big house, and we party afterwards and everything. And I rent a big like what do you call that? Like almost like a conversion van that literally seats like 10 people. And I drive the kids to school is what I say, and then I pick them up from school, and then we go back and we
You
party.
do a little bar hopping and then
Yes.
come back to the house.
Correct. And so obviously I get the names. I tell everybody, hey, at this point I was living in Cleveland. Shout out to Mike Dewar with I Love CLE Clothing Company. He makes these shirts. You should look up the website, ilovecle.com. And I'm originally from Cleveland, so I get the list of the Cleveland people, and I basically tell them, it's Cleveland against the world.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Cleveland agents were there. So I met her and talked to her about working together. And then we started doing some deals together here and there. And then, I asked her out. Yeah. And then about a year and a half into that, I had a pretty successful branch I was running up in Cleveland. And I thought, I feel like I'm punching below the belt.
There's not like a market potential in Cleveland.
Well, there is. And I was doing really well in it. But I felt like, could I take what I did to be successful in Cleveland and parachute into a bigger market and be successful? And I thought, I'm going to give it a whirl. And if it works out, that'd be amazing. And if it doesn't, I'll just lick my wounds and go back to Cleveland where, I was doing very, very well. And we nailed it down to like 4 different cities. And then we landed on Austin, moved down here, basically sight unseen.
Wow. And what year is this?
2019.
2019.
Right before the pandemic. And we came down here, and I started doing the things that I do as far as like the coaching with real estate agents. Obviously for her, one of the things I really have to commend Ina on was when I met her, she was doing about $4 million a year in sales in Cleveland, which is like the equivalency of doing probably like 5 or 6 out here.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to make you like a $10+ million agent. Like, obviously, you met me at the training.
This is sales volume, not commission. By
No,
the
no,
way.
I know.
We're not making $5
For
million.
the-
That's a gross,
people who are-
gross revenue. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, not even gross
but
revenue.
like
No, these are
the
just sales.
amount of the houses. sold.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And so one of the things I really always have commended her on was that she was like, Because I tell agents, I'm like, your business is very similar to mine, right? And when I came down here, I was doing about $25 million a year. So it's like, look, if I can do $25 million a year, I feel like I'm qualified to give you advice. You're only doing, like 4 or 5 million. Like I'm doing 5 times the amount of business. If you follow the things that I'm doing and relate it to your business, you'll get there. And so Ina is originally from the Soviet Union, and her parents are immigrants that fled the Soviet Union before the fall of the before Perestroika. And when you left at that time, you left with nothing because they weren't trading with anyone. There's no currency that you could like exchange.
There's no banks like that.
Correct.
Didn't collapse. Yeah.
So her parents, good on them, went to Germany, created a life for themselves. So when she came here and then we started working together, I remember it was like her first year. She made over $100,000, and she showed her parents, and they were just ecstatic. But I just always have to give a shout out to her for not only like following and listening to some of the things that I had suggested, but also recognizing I was qualified to give that advice. And then on top of all of that, I know that's even tougher when it's someone you're like, someone you're with.
Yeah, right.
But here we are, three properties later and doing well, and it's been a while. It's been fun. It's awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank
man.
you.
That's
Thank
awesome.
You. Yeah.
And what do you think? Because I actually had this conversation the other day that why is the $100,000 mark so important to people in the United States? Like that's when you feel like you've made it here is if you make over 100,000.
It looks cool to have.
Well,
it looks cool, like the extra zero on that.
I love that you asked that because I remember when I first got into this business, I started as a telemarketer when I was 15 years old in the mortgage industry as an after-school job. I had no idea what a fucking mortgage was. I just wanted to get extra money. And I technically didn't start originating loans until 2005. And I remember in 2005, I was like, if I can make $100,000, like, I'm going to be rich. And so to your point, like, I think that number has definitely moved. I personally wouldn't be happy just making $100,000 any longer. Not because I've made it, but because things are just more expensive now and so on and so forth. But I think it's a good benchmark.
Yeah, I think it's an extra zero, and it takes a lot to make that jump from like a $70,000 salary, which is pretty average here in the United States.
Agreed.
To get $30,000 on top of that is a grind.
Yeah.
And so I think accomplishing that extra zero it does feel really nice.
I think so. I think the new 100,000, if I were to give, again, as someone, I always like to talk about being qualified. I pull on average about 8 to 10 credit reports a week. So if you do the math on that, I mean, you're talking over 500 people that I get to see their income. I think the new 100,000 is really 250.
And what is defining the new 100,000? Because what 100,000 means to me is like, I'm comfortable enough to pay my bills and have disposable income to go do fun things, but I'm not like crazy rich where I can just go and not have any work.
I think 250 a year is the new like fuck you money. Where
really even that low, really?
Yeah, and so I actually, it's so funny that we're talking about this because I don't know why I did this, but I literally looked up the definition of fuck you money because I was like, you hear that like fuck you money, like what does that even mean? So fuck you money
on top of your boat.
Because that's like $1 million. That's like over $1 million.
No. That's not fuck you money. So fuck you money is making enough money to pay your bills and also be able to do within reason whatever you want, like within your like 50-mile radius, right? You can also go on like 3 to 5 vacations a year, and it allows you to have enough money that you could not work for at least 1 year.
So like you could say fuck you to your job and then
Right.
not work for a year.
Even if you're self-employed, you could say fuck you to your clients, fuck you to your job. Because if you think about it, if you make $250 for a good 2-3 years and you're not like a complete asshole with your money and like buying Ferraris and like mansions and stuff, you're going to I mean, even if you saved, think about it, even if you saved 10% of your gross income at $250 for 3 years, you've got $75,000 just sitting there chilling, not even like investments, not even houses, not even like stuff. And to your point, you just said like median income's about $70K. So if you got $75K just like sitting in your checking account, not like
in Roth IRAs,
correct,
in your 401k, just like in a bank account.
Right. You could take a year off and you're not going to like
stress.
skip a bill or stress.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in a segue from fuck you money and quitting your job, let's introduce Shawn real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'll do my best to introduce
Go
him,
for it.
and
Give
then
me a little
we'll let him
rundown.
introduce himself. So, when I first met Shawn, I was at this local indie concert, and he was working in marketing for ACL Radio, and he also was working for Waterloo Media, selling basically radio ads, among a couple digital ads and some other things. He also has been and still models, has been international model in Mexico and South Korea and in New York and LA as well. And let's see, what am I forgetting? Oh, he was also a late night radio host on 101X. And or maybe were you also on Lucy at one point as well?
Yeah, I was on Lucy at one point. I was in the
Oh.
afternoon show on Lucy and then weekends on 101X.
And now he's given the fuck you to Waterloo Media. And now
Much love
you're
to Waterloo Media. Thank you for the opportunities that you provided for me and all the knowledge. There's no hard feelings. I love you guys.
and now you can take it away.
Yeah, now I'm at Televisa Univision, which is like the largest Spanish media company on the planet. We have television, radio, digital, and events. And I'm still an account executive, so my job is to sell advertising campaigns and marketing solutions. Mostly work with national brands and local businesses and help them connect with Hispanic audiences here in Austin and beyond. And the reason I chose to go to Univision is because I did spend time in Mexico City, and out of all the different places that I lived, Mexico City was definitely the place that I felt most at home. People were so welcoming. I worked really well in the market. It was just a different lifestyle that I really enjoyed, and I think that's a testament to the Hispanic people. So when I had the opportunity to go and help the Hispanic community grow here in Austin, I jumped at it. It was a really exciting opportunity. I get to work with a few of my coworkers that I had worked with at Waterloo Media. And I was also really flattered that they reached out to me specifically when they could have reached out to 30 other salespeople at Waterloo. So I just felt like it was a perfect culmination of events and experiences that I had. And now I'm 3 weeks into the job now, and just like so ecstatic. I get excited on my way into work, and that's a unique experience. And I don't think a lot of people can say that they're like, I love what I do.
Well, I have so many questions. You want to go, or I mean, I got lots of questions.
I'll let you go first.
You want to touch on Mexico City, or do you want to touch on an account executive as account executive for sales and marketing?
I feel like I would like to hear your questions about account executive, because Mexico City, like as a whole, I can wrap it up into I really love the culture.
All right.
And I really enjoyed the different style of living there, where like the architecture, every building's different. It was ruled by 7 different countries. So there's Spanish influence, there's French influence, there's American influence, there's all these different cultures that culminated into one. And it's the 3rd largest city in the world. So there's a lot going on, but it also doesn't feel like New York. When I lived in New York, I was like, you get there the first time, you're like, oh, this is incredible. And then a month and a half in, you feel like a shell of a human because it's so rat race.
Sure. So one of the things about this podcast that Chase and I try to focus on, in addition to the real estate side of things, is that I've identified that real estate agents ultimately are self-employed business owners, right? And as a sales rep or as an account executive, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like you only get to eat what you kill. So I would like to hear a little bit about, your experience in regards to the sales side of things, some of the ups and downs, if you will, the way that you're generating new clients, maybe things that the audience who is watching this from an entrepreneurial standpoint can get some key takeaways.
I think my approach is really being relentless. When I identify a good prospect, I don't give up on that prospect. I spend 40% of my day, I would say, reaching out to people and being on top of that, being persistent and being creative with the ways that I reach out. I'm not just sending weird cold emails. I'm making phone calls. I'm walking into businesses. I'm putting my face in front of them all the time until they have to be like, yo, leave me alone.
Yeah. So explain that. Maybe unpack that in regards to, Obviously, as salespeople, we deal with rejection on a regular basis. And as a lender, one of the things that I tell real estate agents is that I have a lot of things that I can help them with in terms of the sales side of things, because the loan side of things, in my opinion, is much more sales oriented than the real estate side. Real estate's more about educating. It's more about, kind of hand holding, and it's a little more, it's a little less like salesy, if that makes sense. And so real estate agents do have to sell. They have to sell homes, because if you're just like opening doors and saying, what do you think? Like, I've never seen a successful real estate agent that's their business practice. And a lot of them say, like, I don't want a cold call. I don't want to, like, have to sell. So what kind of tips would you say for people that have a difficult time with rejection?
Well, I'd say it's just like learning an instrument. No one wants to learn how to play scales. Everyone wants to be a rock star in front of everyone.
Amen.
But in order to be a rock star as a salesperson, you have to pick up the phone and talk about your product. You have to talk about why you have differentiators from your market competitors, understand your clients' needs, be able to overcome objections, and also have solid solutions that you believe in.
So conviction is a big one.
Conviction is huge, and believing in your product and having passion about what you're selling and the solutions that you're offering go so far. People can hear it in your voice. Like when you're not convinced of what you're doing, that you just sound like a sleazy salesperson. And I feel like that's the connotation of a used car salesperson, because they don't really believe that the car is a good car.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a marketing and advertising solution that makes sense for a certain business, and I can't reiterate enough like how important it is to identify a good prospect. And a system I use to make sure that I'm not wasting my time reaching out to the wrong people is called DAP Valley, which is something that you hear in the marketing and advertising world. It's called the Center of Sales Success. Is a lot of people in the marketing and advertising world go through that sales training process. And DAP Valley, I might get a few of them wrong, but D is for dollar potential. Do they have the potential to spend the amount of money that your product cost?
Right.
Do you have access? A, do you have access to the right people, the decision makers in the company? P, do you have the right product for them? V is, do you have a value proposition? Do you have like a valid business reason for you reaching out to them? And then the L is, I can't remember what the L is, but then the last one is the most important, which is your desire to work with that person.
Yeah.
And that's your why. Like if you don't have a why, then you're wasting your time. So when I'm identifying prospects, things that I'm passionate about, I love the live music scene. That's how I met Chase, was in a live music setting.
And that's why I'm the realtor that rocks.
He's the realtor that rocks.
No, I get that.
And
well, I want to kick that to Chase, though, because what I want to ask is, I love that you brought up conviction, because, again, I've managed lots of salespeople, and that resonates with me, because that is something that I feel like a lot of people lack. And so as a real estate agent, and not maybe just you personally, but even your experience with other agents, why do you think that it is that certain agents may not have the conviction in regards to what they're selling?
I think a lot of are scared. I mean, I feel like when I first started, I was so worried about making mistakes. I was so worried about saying the wrong thing. And I think just the more repetition, the more you do it, the more confident you get about it.
But that's not conviction. That's confidence. So conviction would be like, let me give you some examples of what a client might say to a new real estate agent that they might not have the conviction in. So number one would be, I think homes are too overpriced, or I think interest rates are high. I don't know if now is a good time to buy. And it's the conviction comes from you having the conviction of being like, no, it is a good time to buy. Interest rates are not high in comparison to the grand scheme of things, or property values are not high. And so how do real estate agents gain conviction in markets? Because from my experience, homes are always high. They're always expensive, and rates are always high. I remember selling 2% interest rates, and people are like, why am I not getting a 1.875%? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to knowing your market, knowing what you're selling. And I mean, if you don't know the research, then
that's what I was going to point to, is like really knowing your product is where the conviction comes from. When someone has an objection, hey, this interest rate's too high, well, I can whip out a study and say, well, interest rates are at an all-time low in the last 10 years.
Sure.
Whatever, that might be talking out of my ass. But even if I was talking out of my ass,
Well, you're not a real estate agent. You're not required to know.
yeah. So I don't
You would
know
kill
that.
it if you were. Thank God you're not.
No, I don't think I would. I think me having the structure, like as you said earlier, I am my own boss and I eat what I kill.
Yeah.
But having the structure of me going into an office every day and being a little bit held accountable by having a manager really sets me up for a win, because I played soccer when I was growing up, and I was a soccer coach's pet. I did whatever the soccer coaches wanted me to do
You're
because
coachable.
I'm coachable, and I loved, like, the words of affirmation is my love language.
Okay.
When people are like, Shawn, you did a good job, that is exactly what I want. That's what
Shawn
I'm
likes an attaboy.
an attaboy, give me a pat on the back. I will do anything for a pat on the back.
I like it.
Because I don't give myself a pat on the back ever. But I think that's what makes me a good salesperson is I hold myself to a really high standard. I'm really hard on myself. And the only way I can get past that is having the right people around me that are like, Shawn, you're doing a good job.
Well, we talked about this, I think, on one of our other episodes where I know that this could never in a million years become a like regulation or a rule, but I think that real estate agents that haven't actually purchased a home themselves are at a huge disadvantage because I've seen this where agents that haven't bought a home, if a client says to them, like, I think that the market's, it's too expensive or rates are high or things like that, deep down in the back of that agent's mind who hasn't purchased yet, they're kind of thinking the same thing. They're like,
Yeah.
I can't afford a home either. And I think rates are high and I think shit's expensive too. And I think it's a huge disadvantage because people who purchased, again, interest rates right now are currently at like 7%, right? And the last time rates were in the 7% range was right around like 2007, right before 2008. And I remember talking to clients that owned homes at that time. Some owned multiple homes. And then after 2008, when interest rates went down, I remember talking to clients and refinance opportunities that couldn't qualify for a refinance. And they were really frustrated because people were getting rates in like the 3s and the 4s. And here they had rates in like the 6 and the 7% range. And they kind of were pulling like it's not fair. It's not fair. Like everyone's getting these low rates and I can't qualify for these low rates. And these properties were going to be my retirement. And a lot of them were underwater at the time too. And at the time I didn't own a home. And even I was kind of like, man, what a shitty position to be in, like here you've got this rate that's like almost double what everyone else is currently paying. You have these homes that are currently underwater. Like what are these people going to do? Well, then I ended up being in the business long enough that those same clients were calling me back about 3 to 5 years later in like 2010, 2011, and they were beating their chests about the equity positions that they were in. They were selling their homes and refinancing and all of this stuff. And they were like, you would have, a lot of them wouldn't even admit that they were bitching and complaining about their situation back in 2008. They were acting as if like they knew, like they fucking knew. They were like, I'm so smart. Look at me. And if those people held on to those homes, think about it. Until even now, I mean, they're literally millionaires. Literally.
I think they bought it at the right time, but the right time, you don't know it's the right time until retrospect. Like you can't see into the future. No one knows it's the right time. But in reality with real estate, it seems like to me from an outside perspective, the right time is as soon as possible.
Well, and so not to get off topic on the conviction, but the point I was trying to make with that was my conviction in regards to everything, the rates are high or property values, everything's too expensive. My conviction after seeing something like that is through the fucking roof. So you're going to have a really tough time as an average consumer explaining to me why now is not a good time to buy because I can tell that story and I saw it. And I have to be honest and say in the beginning when that was happening, in the back of my mind I was thinking, fuck.
You had the same trepidations as the people you're talking to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that real estate agents that haven't purchased homes are at a disadvantage.
Oh, I totally agree because I was able to empathize with clients a whole lot more after I did it myself. And I was pretty confident in my purchase just because I've been through it with so many clients. And I feel like it's much easier for me to purchase a home for myself than it is for me to hold the hand of someone else who's doing it for the first time. But Yeah.
What were your like fears before you went into buying your own home? Like, obviously, it's a $400,000 investment. I can't even imagine $500,000 investment. I can't even imagine that amount of money like sitting in a room. So having that go into a property that you have home insurance on it, but it can burn down, and then it's like
My
it's
fears
scary.
were more like, holy cow, that's a lot of money that's about to leave my bank account that I've been working on saving for a long time. And then I was also worried. I was like, what happens when something breaks? How much is that going to cost me? And then, of course, as soon as you move into the house, you find out that things are going to break.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a lot of pleasure over time in learning how to fix things. I feel like I'm turning into one of those middle-aged dudes
Yeah.
that knows how to fix a dishwasher.
Attaboy.
And I think that's one of the joys of home ownership is that you will have to make repairs. I think it's kind of fun. Some
That's what
people
you
are
signed up for.
super afraid.
So I
about
want to
that.
touch on one of the things that you just said was one of your biggest like fears was that you were pulling money from, wherever that you had saved and you were utilizing that. And that was one of the big fears that you were taking all of this money that you've worked really fucking hard to amass. And now you're putting it into, you're put kind of it for figuratively putting all, if not all, most of your eggs in one basket. And the reason that I wanted to make sure we stopped and talked about this is because this is one of the things that I cannot stress enough about home ownership. And I'm going to clip this out is one of my aha moments in 2020 when, things were getting crazy and people were buying homes for well over asking and paying cash for homes I'll never forget it. I remember dealing with a client who had great credit, great job, was probably putting down like 10%, which is a pretty good down payment, and was getting beat out by all of these people that were doing what we call appraisal gap waivers, where they would say, if the house doesn't even appraise, I'll cover the difference between what I'm willing to pay for it in cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this guy saying to me, who are these people? Where are they getting this money? And the reality was that the majority of the people that were winning these offers were people that were selling their homes and making money on their property and had no problem using what I call monopoly money. Because when you're pulling money out of your checking account that you saved for years, that stings.
Mm.
But when you're taking the money that you made in equity, when you're just like, I just made my mortgage payment on time and I needed a place to live, and all of a sudden I made $100,000, like, sure, I'll put $100,000 down on this next house. It's a completely different mindset. It's a whole nother paradigm. $100,000 of hard-earned saved money versus $100,000 of equity from a property that you've owned for a few years, all things considered, same. It's the same. 100,000 and 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
But the equity part, it's so easy to part with than it is to part with.
Well, because one, you've been looking at it in your bank account the whole time.
You see it grow.
The
Like,
other
you look at your
one,
Mint app, you see it grow all the time.
yeah, the other one, you've never looked at that value. So you sell the home really quickly, you put that money into the next property, you're looking at it in the same place. I think where's it going with that?
Here's I'll help you. The moral of the story is that you need to put yourself in a position to be able to accumulate that monopoly money. You could be that guy that said to me, who are these people? It's like, it could be you if you get in now. And then in the next cycle, when your property's worth X amount of dollars, you can be the guy that's beating out past you,
Mm-hmm.
Being like, sorry, buddy, but yeah, I understand that you're paying full asking price for this property, but I'm going to pay $50,000 over asking because
It's monopoly money.
Yeah.
I didn't hard earn it. It passively
exactly.
became income.
Exactly.
I remember what I was going to say. All right. So for me as a realtor, I am constantly looking at the market value of both of my all three of my properties that I own, because I'm just curious, like, where are they going? Just like I check the stock market
Sure.
every single day on my Morgan Stanley app. I check my Coinbase account every day because I'm weird and obsessed with things. But what I learned over the last couple of years is most homeowners don't do that.
Mhm.
Like, most are not asking their previous realtor for a CMA once a week to see what their home's worth.
Why do you think that is?
Because I just think
'Cause
most of
you'd
them,
be scared if it wasn't going
the
up.
idea
agree.
of selling hasn't really crossed their mind. For
Mhm.
me, as someone who deals with sales every day, like for the right price, I'm always a seller. So what I learned was showing up to people's houses when they've owned their house for 3, 4 years, telling them what it's worth. They were almost always really surprised. Like most, like could I had a couple where um, the owners would say, "Oh, I think my house is worth this much," and I'd be like, "Oh, well, you're in for a fun treat. It's actually worth 100,000 more than what you thought." And they're like, "What? No way."
Do you think it's kind of like the bank account thing, though, kind of to your point, Sean, where people just kind of maybe don't want to look because they're afraid of what it's going to actually be?
Hmm.
Well, it's like a set and a
Out of
like
sight, out of mind.
out of sight, out of mind, and like a set it and forget it type
Mhm.
mindset as well. Like
Mhm.
I have Bitcoin sitting in my Coinbase.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't looked at it in 5 years just
Oh,
because I
wow.
don't even want to know.
Well, because you're not planning to sell.
I'm not planning to sell, and it's kind of like just like a little bread basket in the background that I
Mhm.
have. So there's no point in me checking it every day. I think it would give me anxiety. When you were saying like I check my Morgan Stanley, I check my Coinbase, I check my home values all the time. That's just like
The hair stood up on the back of his neck.
yeah,
Oh.
because it's like because it goes like this, like just like everything else in life, it's a
I
roller
just
coaster.
constantly need something to obsess over. So
Yeah. For
whatever.
me, if I'm like constantly checking in on my net worth, and it's I mean, my net worth is going up all the time. But if I was constantly checking my
Mine's going
Bitcoin,
down.
like my Bitcoin, I know how volatile Bitcoin is. I'd be scared. I mean, in the last like week or two, it's been really nice, but
Sure.
I don't know how much Bitcoin I have at the moment because I don't want to know. Because if I did know, I'm like, oh, there's a large sum of money I could just turn and flip over and then have cash.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a set and forget it mindset.
So we talked about conviction, right?
Yeah.
And then the other part of it you said is what I like to call professional persistence. So what keeps you professionally persistent when you're being told no?
Because I've already identified that I can help them. And I have the passion.
So it goes back to the conviction.
It's the conviction and like the product knowledge and also having a perspective on what the client's looking for. Something that you said earlier that connected with me is I think real estate agents who haven't sold a home, bought or sold a home themselves, or bought a home themselves, haven't put themselves in the shoes of their buyer that they're trying to convince to buy something.
Yeah.
And when I first started in sales, and I was looking at selling like $3,000 a month advertising campaigns, I was like, $3,000 is more than I've ever spent in a month.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really scary perspective. And I've never bought an advertising campaign myself. So I feel like I'm at a disadvantage in that way because I can't put myself in my client's shoes where it's like, what does it feel like to spend $3,000 to $5,000 on an advertising campaign without knowing what the results are going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And especially with advertising, that's an intangible, it's not super measurable in most cases.
Maybe you should do it, man.
I know, but like, what do I buy advertising for?
Well, you wouldn't necessarily buy advertising, but you could purchase marketing.
I mean,
You have to market. You have to spend money to attract clients. Like, what if you went out on a limb and figured out a way that you would take a $3,000 monthly budget and utilize that to obtain more business?
and that's what I was. If you know a tool called Zoom Info,
Mm-hmm.
so that's like $8,000 a year. And I know that when I was at my previous job, they had a license for us. And I used that like the back of my hand. Anytime I had a prospect idea, I'd go in there and I'd be able to look at the org chart, find the marketing director, find the business owner, whoever it was that I wanted to get in contact with, instantly have a phone call, pick it up, go right to them. My new job, we don't have a Zoom Info. And I know for a personal license for a Zoom Info account would be $8,000 a year. $8,000 a year is like, that's a lot of money just to be like,
Yeah, but what's the ROI?
exactly.
Why doesn't your work pay for that?
Because they don't see value in it.
They don't see value in it because I'm one of 6 salespeople and I'm the only one prospecting. Everyone else on my sales team, which is an advantage to me, and part of the reason that I went to this company is that the other 5 women on my sales team have established list. They're all making buku
Yeah, so
dollars.
their revenue, your new business.
I'm new business.
Yeah.
I have to go out and like cut my own teeth.
Right.
Of course, I have a list that's like already set for me, and I'm on a guarantee, and I'm good to go. But if I want to like take myself to that $250,000 a year income, I'm gonna have to put my teeth to the grindstone.
You should ask for a 100% commission deal to pay for Zoom info.
It's also a big corporation. So it's like, I'm not special in any way in Televisa Univision, which is like the biggest Spanish media corporation. We have offices all over the U.S. and South America.
You need to get to the patron.
I know, you know? And I see that potential, and my entire life, my parents have always told me, like, you start at the bottom of a corporation, you work your way up the ladder. That's more, there's more stability in that. It's not as rewarding or as awesome as being your own business owner. As I can imagine with you guys, that must feel really rewarding.
Sometimes.
But that's also, it's like, when I have losses,
You have health insurance.
I have health insurance.
I have health insurance. I pay for it.
But it's like I have a company structure behind me. Like how I like to frame my job is like I'm my own business owner with a corporate structure behind me.
Yeah.
And I have the assets and the utilities of a corporate building and all these different tools that I can use that I wouldn't have if I was just my own marketing agency.
Sure.
That's a scary venture. And like I use Reddit. Like I love Reddit.
I love Reddit.
I love Reddit. And there's a subreddit called our Agency. And it's a lot of guys who own either their own marketing agency, they have an SEO agency. And a majority of the stories are on it are they work at a company like mine. They have 3 or 4 big clients that they have really good relationships with. And they're like, why am I only making 10 to 20% commission on this when I could be making all the money? And so they branch off and do their own thing, start their own marketing agency.
Half of them fail.
They fail.
Yep.
And then they don't have anything to fall back on. And then they're like crawling back to try to get back in the company.
Well, I could tell you why half of them fail. It's kind of the mentality that you just made mention of, because they don't want to make the investment, in themselves. So like, I'm encouraging you right now. I think we just identified something that in addition to the ROI that's associated with it, you also need to be putting up some money. It's going to put you in a position to gain additional conviction on marketing yourself. I think you should pay that $8,000 for that licensing. If you think it'll at least double your ROI, I mean, how many deals, don't answer, but how many deals would you literally have to close to cover the
really
the
not
$8,000?
that many.
Right.
Really not that many. And also it's the time, because at my previous job, I had time to sit down and like make cold calls for 2 hours a day. Now with the addition of television advertising, which is much more labor intensive on an account management perspective, I don't have time to like sit down for 2. I'm only 3-4 weeks into this new job, but as I can see and looking at my coworkers who have been there for 20 years as account executives, it's not like they have 2 hours a day to go around and like sit in an office and make cold calls. They just don't have time. They're managing all their accounts. I have maybe an hour a day. And if I'm spending that time scrolling the internet trying to find the contact number for someone, I'm wasting my time.
Well, and you can take this license anywhere if you purchase it, right?
Yeah, it's unique to me.
So as long as you continue to stay in this business, even if, God forbid, things don't work out with Telemundo or whatever it is.
Hey, oh, hell no. Hell no. That is our direct competitor.
Okay, fair enough.
Telemundo.
Oh, I thought you made that up.
I did not make
No,
that up.
That is
That's the Walmart. I know what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
Telemundo and CBS are like a corporation.
Yeah, I mean, I just spit out Walmart, he's Target. And so I was like,
Things don't work out at Fiesta grocery
Well, the
store.
funny thing is, I actually prefer Target over Walmart, so I'll take that.
you know what I'm saying. But I mean, the license goes with you, right? So if you feel passionate and convicted about the actual, not the product in regards to the particular company, but just advertising in general, this license will follow you.
I totally agree, and I think it is completely I did see the value in it when I was at Waterloo, and I was one of the catalysts for us to get that software system, because how Zoom Info happened at Waterloo was me and one of my coworkers were trying to locate contacts without having Zoom Info, the whole database of people's contact information. And so we went on and did a free trial and like got 3 free.
Yeah, it's time and money, man.
And
that's what it is.
Yeah, and they reached out to us based on that. Like they saw that we had intent to buy their product, and then they just hounded the shit out of my boss. Like he was like, I was doing yard work. I kept getting their emails. I kept getting their phone calls to my office phone. And then I'm outside doing yard work with my son one day, and my phone's ringing off the hook. And it's the guy from Zoom Info. He was like, I finally just gave him a meeting because he was not leaving me alone.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whenever I heard that, that person reached out to me as well and saw that I was what's called like a gatekeeper. And yeah, like getting me on their side was really helpful.
Yeah.
And that's how they ended up selling like a $25,000 package to our company.
I think we figured it out. Shawn's getting a license. So here's what I envision. Shawn gets a license for Zoom Info. He starts crushing it at his job. He's so fucking busy that he ends up also paying for an assistant to do all of the Zoom Info work. He's doing it on the side, 1099, because your company's not going to cover it. And then all of a sudden you realize I am a marketing company inside of a marketing company.
I totally see that. And all it is like the fear of doing that. I hear that too. It's getting rowdy.
I guess so. Baseball.
People are cheering for this idea.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's
Wow.
what it is.
So we solved all your problems.
Yeah, Chase, what are your problems?
I don't know. Well, let's see.
Where are you at, Chase?
I need to speak so I can get some clips here.
Well, so I want to talk about this real quick before we finish the what you're talking about, the speaking. The way that this works with editing is that I love that I always do this with Chase when I bring because I always love to interview the new guests because we don't know. You're getting all of the time. You're in every frame because anytime Shawn's speaking, you're on. Because you guys will catch me when you guys are chatting. That's when I will pick my nose or whatever. Because I know that it's not going to get on film. So, Chase, go for it, man.
All right. So, let's see. Well, I love marketing. So let's talk about marketing. Well, we collabed on my radio advertisement, which I'm excited to talk more about. But tell me about why radio is still such an important marketing medium.
Ooh, I love that.
Because I feel like a lot of people kind of neglect it as a marketing medium now.
I think there's 3 components to why radio advertising still works, and that's the main question.
Wait a second. Is this the guy?
Is this the guy?
The radio guy? You said you knew a radio guy?
Yeah.
This is the guy?
Well,
Yeah.
depends which radio guy.
The good one.
You were doing radio ads.
Uh-huh.
And you said that you knew somebody who was on radio that you were doing radio ads with.
Uh-huh.
Is this the guy?
Well, he's not. He wasn't the on-air personality.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm not.
he was the
I'm
sales
not
guy.
CJ, but
Okay,
I'm the sales guy.
Hey,
CJ.
maybe next time we'll get CJ in here.
Because you were telling me about this.
Yeah. So
this is all.
Shawn wasn't the on-air personality, but he's the one who sold me the on-air
Look at
personality.
that. It's all coming full circle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why do you think he's here? I gotta complain.
Fair enough. I don't know.
Complain to me.
All right.
So-
So going back, why is radio ads still?
Yeah, so
Still
there's
important.
3 components of why I still believe in radio. One, it has massive reach. In the Austin market alone, we reach 73% of households, according to Nielsen, which is the third-party marketing research firm out of Los Angeles. You've heard of TV ratings; they're the ones who come up with that. They say we reach 73% of households in Austin. I think the reason that we reach 73% of households in Austin is it's easily accessible. Anytime you get in your car, rather than having to plug into CarPlay, rather than having to look at your phone and choosing a song or a podcast, being an unsafe driver, you just click on to whatever station that you know.
Sure.
And it has a local feel.
I still catch myself listening to Sun Radio and stuff.
Yeah, and I think in those times that you are listening to Sun Radio, the reason that it's free to you is because it's ad supported. The advertisers that are paying to reach you on Sun Radio, you have a little bit more trust with them because it's also regulated by the FCC. We're not able to throw you some BS stuff like things that aren't gonna follow through.
Right. You guys aren't Instagram influencers?
No, and if you pay an Instagram influencer to promote your product, there's no government regulation to make sure that they actually do it.
Isn't there talk about that though?
I think social media advertising is a complete waste of time in my experience.
Ooh, criteria.
Complete-
criteria. Here we
Bum,
go.
bum.
Complete waste of time. And because as a consumer, as someone that's targeted a lot with ads, we see 3,000 to 5,000 advertisements a day. The last place that I want to see advertisements are on YouTube and on my social media feed. Anytime I get bombarded by a singular business on my social media feed or my YouTube advertising, I hate that company. And especially if they're incorrectly targeted.
Yeah.
I can specifically think of one example, Veronica Beard.
I don't know who that is.
Exactly. She is a clothing company for women.
Okay.
I'm not gonna buy women's clothing.
Sure.
I saw
might
Veronica
look great in
Beard's.
it.
You might buy women's clothing
I mean,
for
I
a
could
woman.
fit really nicely, but I obviously it was a mistargeted campaign.
I have a woman I might buy clothes for. I don't know.
And it might
Sean's
just
in
me.
great
It
shape.
might just be me as a marketing and advertising person, and it just like pissed me off when things are targeted incorrectly. But every time I got onto YouTube to try to watch a video that I enjoy, it was the same Veronica Beard ad. They didn't rotate copy. They didn't have different creatives for their advertising campaign. It was the same ad every single advertisement break. So I know they were spending a crap ton of money. Did I ever buy anything from Veronica
hang
Beard?
on, I want to bring that up. So just to be clear,
Mhm.
because I know we just probably pissed off a lot of people about doing social media ads, you're talking about paid ads. Because a lot of
Yes.
people would argue that like social media is a great marketing tool for me because it's free.
I
Oh,
think
organic. You
Yeah, organic.
can't argue with that ROI.
Right.
Organic social media is different than paid advertising.
Right.
On
So
social
what you're
media.
talking about
Yes.
is somebody who pays to be on social
A
media.
sponsored
marketing.
when anytime like
Correct.
you're going through your feed and you see something sponsored, that pisses me
I just don't
off.
want the comments to explode.
You can go at me. I don't care.
No. I think it's good.
No,
that
I'm going to dig in further though.
Yeah, please, because I think it is a complete waste of time unless it's for an event. Like if I have a concert coming up on a weekend, I do think it's valuable to run like Austin Blues Festival is coming to Austin, and I see their
Oh,
ads a
that
lot.
lineup's killer.
It's an awesome lineup. I used to work with Antones when I was at Waterloo Media, and I love their advertisements. I'm not mad to see that because I'm gonna buy tickets. So it's targeted correctly. It has good creative. It's like almost a part of my Instagram feed. Whenever I'm scrolling through my Instagram stories and I see that ad, I'm not annoyed by it because it's relevant to me. And I feel like a main reason that social media advertising doesn't work is because Facebook and Meta have reduced the amount of things that you can target your ads with. It's very minimal on what you can target your ads, and you can't do people's income level. You can basically just do their age and their ethnicity and their zip code
and their gender.
and their gender, and that's
Yeah.
about it.
Because I bought some cut T-shirts.
And their search
cuts.
history.
You know, cuts.
Yeah, they fit nice.
They fit nice, but you know what? They're just way overpriced. I wasn't that impressed, but they got me.
But that's all your keyword searches. And like this is a good tip for anyone that's seeing an advertisement too often or a category of advertising that they don't want to see. You can go into your Google Tag Manager, which is all the things that you type into Google, the content that you consume on Google platforms. You can go into that tag manager and be like, I don't want to see T-shirts anymore. Exit out of that, and you won't see T-shirts anymore. Little tidbits.
No, I dig
You
it.
know,
I mean, again,
And then for realtor, add the fair housing laws on top of that. Then you really can't target for anything. You can pretty much set a pin on maps and say 20-mile radius of this pin, and that's about it.
Well, then you're serving advertisements to a
But-
bunch of people who couldn't afford the house in the first place.
The one thing that I feel like has a lot of potential that I'll be honest, I haven't really gone down this rabbit hole yet, is like retarget marketing. So I know that someone's in my database using their email to hit them with ads later. Is that
That's
you think
completely
that's bad?
valid. That's completely valid. Yes. Retargeting ads is one of the best ways to get a return on investment when it comes to advertising. If you have, that's what's so great about digital marketing outside of the Instagram and Meta and Facebook world is that streaming TV is a huge thing now. And a lot of people can't pay for every single application. You can't pay for Netflix and Hulu and Peacock and all these and everything that's out there. So you're going to be consuming some sort of ad-supported streaming TV. And with ad-supported streaming TV, the targeting parameters are endless. I can do by neighborhood. I can do device ID targeting. I can set a geofence around people that I
I
have
love
a list.
geofencing. I think that's a great.
Geofence
I love
is
it.
awesome.
So here's what I'm going to do. I pounded that first one. I can't believe I already broke the seal. I really want you to go into geofencing because I think it's good for the podcast. Why don't you guys do that, and I will be right back. Do your thing.
Yeah, actually, let's play a quick marketing game. So Tom Ferry does it's called Hot or Not. Basically, it's what do you think is working right now? What do you think is not working right now? And you're welcome to say medium and then explain.
Yeah. So I think one thing that's not working right now.
Oh, I was gonna say the
Oh, go,
items
go, go.
and then you were gonna answer.
Yeah.
Billboards.
Yes. Hot.
Oh. YouTube and stream ads.
Hot.
Oh, Okay, well, we're gonna have to discuss. Um, Influencer paid.
The coldest shit ever.
Oh, okay. Um, Voicemail drops.
Voicemail drops.
You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know what a voicemail
So
drop
basically,
is.
when a company leaves you a voicemail, but you never got the missed call, they'll be like, "Hey, this is Austin Davis from United Exterior Cleaning. I wanted to remind you that the spring is coming, and we have availability for our pressure washing services."
I hate it. That's so cold.
Shout
because
out,
it,
Austin.
Well, because it feels like nothing. No offense, Austin, but it feels so like AI automated. And I guess maybe in our generation that wouldn't work on like our demographic because we're super hyper vigilant when it comes to things that we think are scams. And anything that feels AI generated or automated, we're automatically like, I don't want to do anything with it. Like I get cold emails all the time because of my job title. People think account executive is like high up in a company. I'm just a sales guy. And so they're reaching out to me trying to sell me a software for the entire company. And I can tell they're just doing an auto generated mass email blast through HubSpot. And I never read it. It's always too long. It's always so salesy. It never connects.
Man, my next one was going to be email marketing.
There's a way to do it right.
Okay.
Too long didn't read is a thing. Like, no one wants to read 4 paragraphs in your email. We can go onto Instagram. Our attention span is so small. Why am I going to sit here and read your 4 paragraph long email? I will read your 3 simple sentence email that has nice graphics, and it makes it really easy for me to click through and go check out more information if I'm interested. But if you're trying to tell me the whole business story in an email, I'm not going to connect with it.
Okay, I got plenty more. We could go on for a while. Product placement, like in a movie.
In a movie,
and
I
TV.
think there's some value to that.
Okay. Google My Business.
One of the most important,
Yelp.
also important, but also that's pretty organic. And if you're trying to shape that, the only way to really make sure that you have good Yelp profile is actually delivering good service.
Postcard mailers. I'm not sure if you deal with this at all.
No, yeah, in mail is on the marketing side of things. I think it's completely valuable when it's done right.
Yeah. How about like a newspaper? Like
Sorry, my newspaper peeps. Other than community impact, if it's like super hyper local that has a newsletter feel to it that goes out to people's inboxes every morning, I'm subscribed to community impact. I love that service. Keeps me up to date on my local community, but also it's kind of a prospecting tool for me too. Sorry.
Let's see, I'm about done here. Oh damn, I just lost it. What was it? Well, ideas left the building. Cool.
You were on InMail. What would be after InMail? So like mailers.
I don't know. I was gonna say Spotify ads, like streaming services, but not visual, just audio.
Interestingly, I listen to Daily Drive every morning, which is a Spotify auto-generated playlist. And when it first came out, it was kind of a beta on the Spotify platform, and it was just a mix of news podcast and the music I had in rotation pretty often. But within the last 2 or 3 months, I've noticed that they've had targeted ads, and I get the Texas Mutual Insurance ad almost every single morning, but it's not the same ad. It's like they have a different message 7 times, which is great. And I think that's a testament to Spotify, which is a company I'm a huge fan of. I've loved Spotify since they first came out. I was an early adopter of Spotify, got off of Apple Music. I think they listen to what their customers want and they deliver it. And we want targeted ads that are relevant and not the same thing every time. I don't want to be annoyed by an ad. I want to be like, oh, what's this new product I haven't heard about? And like Texas Mutual has this new app that's really cool. They have, whenever you switch over from a different insurance company, there's incentives for that for my age bracket. So I can tell that the ad is specific to me, and I appreciate that as an advertising person. I don't know how anyone else feels, but as an advertising person, I'm like, thank you, Spotify, for using some AI or whatever you did to make sure that these ads are relevant to me.
Okay, nice. I got a couple more hot or nots I thought while you were explaining that. Booth at an event.
Depends on the event, but I think it's still hot. I think tangible interactions with audiences create memorable experiences, and that's a great way to generate business.
Okay, hosting a class or hosting your own event in order to sell a product.
I think he's a testament to that working. I think it's a great way to, one, show your knowledge in the industry, and then two, to build a network. And as we all know, it's all about who you know.
Okay, all right. Final boss question here. Let's say me and you were to start a company today. Let's say we were selling seltzer water. I'm not going to go down like an alcohol route. We're talking. Let's say we're selling the next LaCroix. What would be your top 5 go-to-market advertising mediums if you're considering return on investment, starting, slim? Let's say we don't have, Shark Tank backing. We're bootstrapping this. What are your go-to 5 marketing mediums?
Guerrilla marketing first. Getting out on the street and getting direct feedback from people trying your product, making social media videos about that. Remember a few years back on TikTok, you saw that free water company that would do the advertising on the side of the water bottles? I loved those videos because it was always funny to see people's reaction to the product. And there's another company that does TikTok ads where it's not even ads, it's like organic post, and it's a cup that's made of wood, and then they do it in a glass, and it's 2 different types of whiskey. The people who are trying it think it's 2 different types of whiskey, but it's actually the same whiskey. And the product is that the wood makes the whiskey taste better.
I've seen that.
And so it's all, and then I remember that, and so I'm like, if I was a whiskey drinker, then I would buy that product.
All right, I got the question everybody wants to know. Knowing what you know as an advertising executive, what is the best paid advertising pound for pound in regards to dollars for ROI that you think would be best for a real estate agent? Take your time.
I really do think the right event, like a family-oriented event in Austin, like one off the top of my head would be Kite Fest. There's going to be 50,000 Austinites in Austin Zilker Park. You have tangible interactions with these people. You get to show your charisma, your personality in person. You get to not only hand them a card, they can go check out your website, but they're going to remember your face.
So we're talking like a tent at an event?
A tent at an event. Of course, you're limited to you only have one face. So you can only talk to so many people. But at the same time, those individual interactions, like I went to a Riser event at the new like highbrow, lowbrow, and there was a guy doing like financial services and financial consulting. And I still remember that guy. Like I haven't worked with him yet, but he's probably going to be my first whenever I decide to go and work with someone, because he was there and had a really engaging conversation with me, and was also incredibly knowledgeable about what he was talking about.
And that is paid. I hear what you're saying. You got to pay to be at the event. But is there anything as a real estate agent, let's say I'm like, you know what? I hear what you're saying, and you're not wrong, but I can't be at a bunch of events because I am a mom or I'm too busy or whatever have you. Is there any form of, advertising medium that you think is best practices for a real estate agent that isn't face-to-face?
I think consistent emails.
Email.
If
that
it goes
surprises me. I need you to unpack that.
But email is a difficult one where you have to have the right advertising company that can break an email junk mail log. If it's not hitting their actual inbox, it's getting lost. So it's more expensive.
So we had a company on last week, is a new startup. They're called Scale Mail. And their whole thing was exactly what you just said. And I kind of like beat the kid up a little bit because I was like, email. But his whole like value add was we have the ability to break the junk email and all of that. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because now I feel bad, because I was kind of like, what are you fucking talking about? Yeah, a little bit.
Because Gmail, I trust Google as a brand more than almost any other brand. Like Gmail, like Google is not going to allow some BS and allow me not to like their product, because everything relies on me trusting Google. And so if Gmail...
What kind of phone do you have?
An iPhone. But of course.
I'm just asking.
No, that's a good point. I don't want because I've started with an iPhone and I love the operating system.
You like the operating system.
The operating system is so easy.
I'm a Droid guy. for the
I
same
can-
reason.
I have a
can see that.
Chromebook computer.
Not a boy.
I think I have no doubt that Androids are great products. It's nothing about that. It's just comfortability.
Well, they're good products if you get the right ones. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when people are like Android suck. I'm like, you have to understand that they have Android is a big umbrella. And if you're not messing with like a Google Pixel, a Samsung Galaxy, or what's the other one? Are those the only two?
I know that like Yahweh's are really big in Mexico, and they have awesome specs to their phones. Like
Okay.
you can put this phone.
Name it after the Bible. It better be good.
I think
Yahweh.
yeah,
Shit's biblical.
it's spelled like
There's
it's
not
a-
the Bible. That's the
That's-
Hebrew word for Jesus.
Mhm.
But hey, you know,
Hey, close
facts
enough.
are
Hey,
facts.
we'll control F that shit into the Bible.
But I think because I trust Google so much, if someone can break through the Google firewall and get to my actual inbox and not to my promotional inbox,
You're impressed.
I'm impressed.
Okay.
And I open it because I don't want a notification on my phone.
What do you feel
Wait,
about
do mine come
what are
to
you-
your inbox or your promotions tab?
No, to my inbox.
what are your thoughts?
I got words for this. Okay, so I have been working on this for a while, and my newsletters come from MailChimp, and I had this idea a while back that
Oh, you're saying the ones that you like your
Oh, no.
your
my MailChimp ones.
yeah, your
Those are
cocktail party
promotional.
ones.
Yeah.
Those go to my promotional.
Okay, well, fuck my whole conversation.
What
Yeah.
are your here, I've got two things I want to ask you about. Number one,
Mine come to my regular one on my other email.
what are your thoughts about? You can answer them individually or together. What are your thoughts about, text messaging in terms of, and then hang on, and then number two, what are your thoughts in general about video messaging?
I think text messaging is one of the most impressive. If someone can follow up, like, you know how anytime that you go to a new restaurant, they're like, oh, sign up for our app. Like the Taco Cabana app,
Mm-hmm.
when I first signed up for that, I was getting texts all the time. And then I realized I was going to Taco Cabana a lot more because they were talking to me all the time. They were top of mind.
We love the Cabana.
And I love Taco Cabana now. And I think they developed a good customer me because they continued to talk to me. And where do I talk the most on my phone?
Text.
Text.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a fantastic medium. I was actually thinking about that earlier when I was driving over here because I got a Nikki Haley campaign, like,
The
election
comedian?
day. Yeah, no, Nikki Haley,
Oh,
like
Nikki Haley,
like
the
president.
politician. Yeah,
And I'm like, I've opted out of multiple her
she's
texts.
kind of a comedian though.
Yeah, kind of hilarious that she thinks she can still do something.
Yeah.
But I've gotten multiple
The
from
war
different
hawk.
numbers, like trying to get me to vote for Nikki Haley.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, she must be spending a shit ton of money targeting with text advertising, but it pisses me off. And then Nikki Haley is on the top of my mind. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna vote for
that's
her.
the Howard Stern effect.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
So one of the things that they say made Howard Stern so successful, if you watch his movie, this is something that I think about when it comes to advertising, is they did the Nielsen reports on people who listen to Howard Stern. And they said, people who love Howard Stern, what's the number one reason that you listen to Howard Stern? And the answer was, I want to see what he's going to say next. The number two person who hated Howard Stern, who listened to Howard Stern, why are you listening to Howard Stern if you hate him? I want to see what he's going to say next. So it's like, it's kind of the whole cliche of like, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? And for me, what I've identified in the last like 18 months only is I started doing text messaging to my clients in like blasting, where like I can put all of my clients into a spreadsheet and it comes out on my number. And I can blast all of them and say, because what I try to do are these annual reviews. I say, hey, I want to do annual reviews with you. I want to connect with you. I want to go over your mortgage. I want to talk about your insurance. I want to talk about all of these things. And the text messaging, by far, is the number one way that I'm able to connect. It's not email. It's not phone. It's text messaging. And the company I use, I won't mention them because I'm not super happy with them. But if somebody could figure out a way, kind of like what Nikki Haley you're talking about, like there's obviously other companies out there that are doing it really, really well. I want to talk to that company because that, to me, is the number one way to connect with clients because at the end of the day, it results in a phone call. That's what you really want. And to your point, even that phone call, ideally, should turn into a face-to-face meeting.
Interaction, right.
And text messaging seems to be a way to do that. And another thing that I've been doing a lot of for the last 2 years that's been working very, very well with me, I work with a company that I am happy with, which is BombBomb. and I send out a lot of BombBombs, and that seems to do very, very well for retention.
I'm not familiar with BombBomb.
So BombBomb is a video messaging platform that not only they do a very good user-friendly video messaging platform where I can either send it in a text message or I can send it in an email. And in addition to, being very user-friendly, I like what they do in terms of their editing. It also allows me to know when the client opens it up, how long of the video, because if they exit out of it in 20 seconds and it's a 1-minute video, I know if they watch the whole thing, half of it, a quarter of it, any of it. And then from there, it does capture all of their information. And the thing that I like about it is that I've noticed it really hasn't done anything for me in terms of new business, but it really helps me in terms of retention. So like if I get a lead from Chase and Chase is like, hey, here's a client, I want you to connect with him, get him pre-approved. I do all of that, and then I'll typically send out the pre-approval letter with a BombBomb because they haven't seen me. And I'm like, hey, Shawn, thanks a lot. We had a great conversation. And I'll usually try to put something in that's like specific to our conversation so that it's not a stock video. Right? Like I'm saying your name, and I'm like, I really love the idea that you want to purchase a new home because you said you're just having a baby, and like we're going to make this happen. And my retention on that client, because they now see me, they see that it's an original video, and they feel like, at least I like to think, they feel like they know who they're working with now. There's a face to a name. They know it's not a stock video, and that is another form of advertising that I think is top-notch.
Absolutely.
I feel the same way about my social media. I consider it more of a client nurture tool than I do a client development tool.
Like a CRM.
Because, I mean, let's say, I don't know, I just met 15 new people at my comedy class, and I just met 15 new people on my kickball team. Well, I'm not going to hound them once a week like, hey, you're looking to buy a house? You're looking to buy a house? But I make sure they all follow my Instagram, and then they're just seeing me post over and over.
And you're top of mind.
And, I mean, my ROI on on a kickball team is crazy. Like, I sell 2 houses from that, and I've made a shit ton of money. But I don't have to follow up with these people. My social media is doing it for me, so I'm just keep posting videos and such.
And that's something I want to touch on too, is that the importance of advertising, like I said earlier, is that we see 3,000 to 10,000 advertisements every day. So what makes your advertisement stand out? It's unique copy and also storytelling. And I think Chase's Instagram is a testament to that. It's not like, hey, the same ad every single time. Hey, I'm selling houses. The interest rate is this. He tells a story throughout the Instagram, and you're waiting for the next video to come out. And so you're creating a sequence of a story rather than pushing the same message every single time, which I think a lot of people do, even when they get access to a good email or text code. She sent me the same text message 4 times. And like, I'm not going to connect with the same text message 4 times. But if the first text message leads into the second text message and leads into a story that's compelling, and I'm waiting for the next cliffhanger effect, I want to see what's coming next, that's going to connect with people rather than the same thing so many different times. We get burnt out. We have small attention spans. So communicate in a different way.
Well, I want to touch on, I don't want to bypass kind of one of the things that you just mentioned, because this is something that a few agents have mentioned to me, because again, I want to make sure I set the table in respect to, we try to make this podcast designed for not only, people who want to watch it, but entrepreneurs that are looking for new business. And I love what you're doing. You just mentioned comedy, you mentioned your kickball team, and I had another agent on here who said that his biggest key to success over the last few years is he's finally starting to just get out and not even network. I mean, kickball, it's networking, but like, can you kind of dive in a little bit about some of the things that you're doing by just getting out there and joining clubs and everything, and the return on investment in that?
I'll give you the big why, then I'll give you the what, then I'll give you the return. So the why. So my previous job when I was working in Seattle at Fly Homes, I was working entirely in the event marketing space. So I was in charge of offline marketing. Basically, that meant every day I was doing home buying classes, lunch and learns at companies, a booth at an Indian Heritage Festival or a tech festival or, something like that, handing out flyers outside of Amazon offices, hosting parties, going to networking events, anything I could get my hands on that could bring in clients through offline marketing. when
Which, for the record, Shawn said was the best form of
I
marketing
agree.
for a
It
real
works.
estate
and I'm
agent.
going to come back to our seltzer thing later in this episode. We got plenty of time. So what we found when we looked at the numbers was my budget was 2% of our monthly marketing budget. So we're talking I spent 20,000 a month. Our marketing budget was $1 million a month. My business that I brought in was 1/3 of our was 1/3 of our business each month. And so my cost per lead was so little versus our digital marketing sources where and I think what it boils down to is they met me in person. I gave them a good impression of our company, and I immediately put them in contact with one of our agents who was going to serve them. Because I wasn't a realtor for them; I was just a business development guy.
But how are you doing that? So I think a lot of people that are watching this are like, okay, great. I'm going to go to an event and I'm going to set up a booth, or I'm going to join a kickball team, or I'm going to join comedy. How do I make it not cringy?
Oh, gotcha.
Because that's the, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the
Great point.
finesse. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah.
finesse. Because I think about myself watching this shit, and I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm gonna join tennis club. How am I going to convert leads from my tennis club without being like, hey,
Hey, come buy a house.
come
with
buy
me.
a house? So how do you do that?
Gotcha. Okay, sorry. So again, big why is they met me in person. That's the thing.
Sure.
So when I moved here to Austin, I said, how am I going to make business without a huge budget? Because I only had half a year's salary saved. I was like, I got to make money somehow. So I said, I'm going to go to as many events as I can. And what I'll tell anyone is I would probably stay away from the business to business networking events because everyone's just out for themselves. But when you show up to something like a kickball league, which is going to be 8 weeks long, or my comedy or improv class, those are both 6-7 weeks long. You're meeting the same people over and over. They're seeing your consistency. If you're on a team-based sport, I'm always like the team cheerleader. They know me as the loudest person on the team, the one who knows everyone's name by the end of the game, into the first game. I'm bringing the alcohol every week, of course. Um, but I never. It just comes up in conversation that I'm a realtor. Like I will never go pitch them on the kickball court. But instead, I make sure to follow everyone on Instagram. This has always been my key. Follow them on Instagram.
Mhm.
Naturally, most people who you
See,
know,
now we're getting the nuggets.
most people you know in person will follow you back.
Sure.
Naturally. And then they just start seeing your shit. But you also got to continue to like and watch their shit. Because as long as you continue to like theirs, then they'll continue to see yours. Yeah,
When
tip
it comes,
for tat
I think what I've noticed about you is you're genuinely curious in other people, and people can feel that. And I think that's what makes a good salesperson is having. I don't want to sell people things. I want to learn about other people, and then the sales come later.
Well,
Well, I
people
think
want to
my-
do business with people they like.
Well, I think my other thing is I'm not on the kickball team to sell people anything. I'm not in the comedy class to sell people anything. If I make connections, I'm just making friends.
Yeah.
And what I learned was the more friends you got, the more business you got.
So let me be the
So I will never fake a friendship for business.
Breaking the seal.
do it.
If I'm friends with someone, it's because I want to be. And obviously I expect them to use me when it comes time for them to transact.
So not for me, but for the audience. Like here I am, I'm a new agent, and I'm watching this podcast, and Chase Cangelosi is saying, I joined a kickball team. I joined a comedy. What's the comedy thing, by the way? You're
Yeah,
doing
it's
like
a
stand-up
stand-up
comedy,
comedy class. I just finished it, yeah.
stand-up comedy class. And so, all right, I'm like, all right, I could do this. I go to my kickball event, and I'm hanging out, and I'm thinking, I think I know the answer, but I want you to say, like, I know really deep down I'm doing this because I'm trying to obtain business. I'm trying to make friends, and I know that it's going to be cringy if I'm like, I'm a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. Like, what are the nuggets? What's the finesse that you're doing that seems to be working? Like, give us the playbook,
I'm sure you're expecting a certain answer. I'm just going to give you what I think is the answer.
please.
They're meeting Chase as a person. They're not
Mhm.
meeting me as a realtor. They're meeting me as a supportive teammate, as a supportive class
But how do
member.
they find out eventually that you're an agent?
Because I follow them on social media.
And now they know.
So the social media is my nurture tool. Also, usually I have everyone's email from these teams as well. They go on my newsletter. So I'm at minimum hitting them on social media, hitting them through my newsletter, and then
So it's wolf in
I'm
sheep's
usually
clothing.
I'm usually the one who's arranging like the team party at the end of the semester.
Got it. So you're going the extra
semester, whatever.
mile. You're
At the
trying-
end of the season. Yeah, so I'm trying to go the extra mile to make sure that they remember me as a person that they like. So my previous kickball team, I sold a house from. It wasn't to one of the players. It's to one of the players' girlfriends who wasn't
Nice.
on the team. But she was going to some of the games. She met me at some of the games, and she's like, "Oh, he seems like a really great team player. I need a realtor." So I just if you come right off the gate, like you get at these business to business networking events, where the first word out of someone's mouth is, "Hello, my name is
Chase
Shawn,
Cangelosi.
and
You
I
can-
work for Goosehead Insurance." It's always Goosehead Insurance. Sorry,
Yeah.
Becca. It always is. And then immediately I'm like, oh,
So
Great.
let's go back to conviction, because I think this is part of it. As you know, I'm trying to really help the like new agent. As a new agent, the conviction, which is low, my conviction is low, right? And I'm doing what Chase Cangelosi is saying. I'm going to, let's say I like to bake, right? I'm a new real estate agent, and Chase Cangelosi is saying, listen, join a club, do the things. I'm going to go to a baking club. I'm going to do an 8-week baking club. I'm going to learn how to bake really exotic cakes. And I go there and I meet people and I get their emails and they get on my newsletter. They see what I'm doing. They obviously are going to recognize that I'm a real estate agent. What is it about that to you that gives you the conviction that that doesn't feel cringy?
because they're meeting me in real life as a person. I'm not talking about my work in front of them unless they ask. Naturally, they will.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they see online from me afterwards, for the rest of time is just what I do.
Understood. But like, why do you feel okay about that? What about that? No, I'm not saying it's a
think-
bad thing. Like,
I think
where
in-
does the conviction come
Yeah,
from?
I think the conviction is it's my job. This is my livelihood. I believe in what I'm selling. I'm not selling ice to ice climbers. This is a product that everyone needs to live somewhere. I work with rentals too. Okay. So
It's not cringy because it's a hustle, and I think everyone can respect someone hustling. And like seeing Chase work really hard inspires me to work really hard in my job. So I'm fine with seeing Chase.
Because I'm not
post
saying
about
it's
it.
cringy. Just for the record, the question I'm more asking is that you're able to do this. You have this unique ability to do exactly what we do. I don't have to reiterate it. You're joining these clubs, you're doing these things. And I think a lot of other people that are new in the business might say, ooh, I feel like that's ungenuine. I feel like it's cringy. I'm going to this club and I'm doing this thing, and you don't feel that way. So what's the difference between the person that does feel that it's cringe and the person that doesn't, which is you? What about that can we instill into somebody who's new in the business that goes, listen, man, it's not cringy what you're doing. It's genuine. You're joining a club. You have you do legitimately have like a want to learn. I mean, comedy,
yeah.
kickball.
Oh, I don't
said
do
baking.
something I'm not interested in.
Right. So, like, how do we coach somebody who might say, oh, that just seems so, like, backdoor?
I feel like I have so many thoughts about this. First, for that person, if you want to learn, read the book Ninja Selling. Second, I'm probably about to sneeze. It's not for everybody. You have to be a pretty outgoing person to be able to withstand, networking events 5 nights a week.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone can do that. Some people are not made to do that. And so not everyone can play off the same playbook. And that's why the glory of being an independent salesperson is you can do it however you want.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you're coming from a place of, I just want to make friends, then there's nothing cringy about it.
You know what
You're
my
just being
favorite
a
line?
human.
You know what my favorite line is in terms of what we're talking about right now is, if not me, then who?
Great.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I always think about this a lot where I connect with people very similarly to the way that you do. And eventually, not everyone, but the majority of the people are going to purchase a home and they're going to need financing. And so if it's not me, then who? Right? And that's the way I look at a lot of things. It's like, I'm not here to sell you anything, but there will come a time that you will need the services that I provide. And if it's not me, it's going to be someone else. So why shouldn't it be me? Right? That's how I look at it.
Oh, I agree. And for anyone who thinks that they're going to be able to move to Austin Fresh, start as a realtor, join a kickball team, and immediately have clients, that's not how it's going to work.
No, that's not how it works.
But the people that you meet in 2024, you'll end up doing business with them in 2026. These things sometimes have a long tail before you.
Do you think that's one of the things, we can relate this to sales in general? Do you think that the three guys in this room right now, I mean, I've been selling for 25 years. You've been doing this for over 10. I don't know, we just met.
2016, but yeah.
Almost. So
yeah,
8. I mean, you're approaching a decade. I mean, do you think a lot of people who get into sales businesses get into them because they see the earning potential, but in reality don't want to put in the actual like marathon type shit that they have to do?
They either know someone who's doing really well in their respective position, and they've been working on their craft for a while, and now they're making money, or they have watched TV and shows like Selling Sunset, $1 Million Listing, and Buying Beverly Hills. Respect to all of the agents I've met from all of these shows, who have been putting in the work for a while, or they're paid actresses, they're doing glamorous work, and it looks like it's easy because the show can only show the non-confidential stuff.
Right.
And so people see a show like $1 Million Listing, and they're like, well, this goofball can sell this $10 million property. Why can't I? And honestly, I hope more people have that kind of conviction of just blind faith.
The thing that so I had the pleasure of seeing Grant Cardone speak last week, and I have very vocally hated on him quite a few times.
I was about to say.
I vocally hated on him on the podcast quite a few times, and after seeing him speak, I hate him.
Undercover Billionaire was sick.
It was really good, actually.
So I hate Grant Cardone less after seeing him. The part that I will say that I still don't like about Grant Cardone is I think Grant Cardone has a very, very good way of not lying by omitting facts, if that makes sense. So the omission of a fact is not a lie.
He tiptoes around it.
And one of the things that I loved about seeing Grant Cardone speak was before Grant Cardone did his presentation, his wife spoke.
Oh. What's her name? Alina?
Something, Elena, something like that. But what I really liked about her and and what she basically did was I almost feel like she needs to do all of the presentations before you see Grant Cardone, because all Grant Cardone talks about is his wins. And she really did a phenomenal job of talking about not dwelling on losses by any means, but basically she was way more real than he is. And I really liked that because, you know, again, like you got all these people just like frothing at the mouth over like hoping that Grant Cardone is going to give some sort of nugget that's going to make everybody like $1 million fucking dollars. And the things that he didn't talk about that she talked about was the fact that like Grant Cardone has been doing what Grant Cardone is doing since like 2001, right? So we're talking, you know, almost 25 years that it has taken him to get to where he was. And he didn't start no one. He started way before then. And everybody thinks there's some get-rich-quick scheme. And when you think about it, like, kudos to Grant Cardone for accomplishing what he's accomplished. And I could go into all of the things that he mentioned, but there's a lot of omission of facts when he speaks that she was really transparent on. And she was sitting there saying, like, you know, if you're going to be married to a guy like this, you have to understand, like, we go to fancy dinners and, like, he's on his phone the whole time. There are 7 days a week that, like, we are working every single day. Like, there is no off switch. Here they are in Austin, like, they were talking about their 3 kids. Where the fuck are they?
Mm-hmm.
Where are your 3 kids? You know they're being watched by a nanny. And, like, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not a parent. I don't have kids. But at the end of the day, there are people out there that tell me like, "Oh, well, Matt, I have a family. I can't and that's a choice, right? The Cardones, they're I don't know where the fuck their kids are. And I'm not again, I did I want to make it very clear I'm not judging anyone as a parent. But like to reach that level and to be that, like you're making some serious concessions in the things that you want to do. Vacations, all of those things. I mean, she was saying like, we'll go on a vacation, we'll go on an extravagant vacation. We're writing it off as a business expense because we have to see like 9 people. And I was like, fuck yeah, you are telling the truth. And all these people in the room that are acting as if they're going to hear something from Grant Cardone and like pull a couple levers and poof, we're a millionaire. Like, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case.
No, as soon as you stop looking for an epiphany moment, I think I did that for a long time in my life where every dot would connect and it would all make sense and then I would be an all-knowing being and understand how life worked. As soon as you stop trying to do that and just living a life of I'm going to be a good person, I'm going to help people, I'm going to love people, and I'm going to work really hard. That's the real factor is like I'm going to work really hard. The rest falls in place. But I think a lot of people, like you said, went to see Grant Cardone and oh, he's going to give us this epiphany and then sales is going to be easy from the rest of the time. We all know sales is not easy. It's never going to be easy. It's the people who continue to be consistent and relentless in sales are the ones that are going to succeed. And I think Grant is a testament to that.
Well, and there's always a bigger bear, right? And that's the other thing that I think about. You asked me in the beginning of the podcast how old I was. I'm almost 40 years old, and I've been doing this for 20 years. And one of the things that I think about is like, I know the older people that were in the industry. Some of them are finally exiting, and you're never going to find a guy who's been busting his balls for like 25 plus years and all of a sudden just take out the bigger bear. Like, that's just not how it works. And I guess I have to ask you, how old are you?
How old am I now?
Yeah, how old are you now?
I'm 27.
So you're 27 years old, Chase. You're about the same age.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I think about a lot too, because I remember being that age and like 20. I always tell people like 28 was the year that I like woke up. And it wasn't because I was like dumb before or anything. Again, going back to like what I said before, like
Perfect.
15
I
years,
can count on that happening.
15 years old in this industry. So like by the time I was 28, I could technically say I'd been in the business for 13 years in this arena in some form of fashion. And at 13 years, most people would say like, oh yeah, 13 years, like you're going to be crushing it. And I was doing very well with all things considered. But there's always someone out there that's like, I've been doing it for 25. I've been doing it for 30. And yeah, there's people out there that have been doing it for 30 years and they had the same first year 30 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got people who've been doing it 30 years that have evolved every single year. But it is hard to nobody who's been in this business or any business for that amount of time who's crushing it is just going to give the fucking crown. And so not only do you have to focus on your own, know-how, experience, sphere of influence, whatever you want to call it, you also have the competition of the people who have been doing it way longer than you. And no one's going to give it up.
No, and you got to hate losing too. I don't want to lose at all.
I hate losing more than I like winning.
Exactly. I hate losing, and having 30 people at Waterloo that I was competing against was the catalyst for me to be like, I'm going to beat all these old
You're
guys.
a negative reinforcement guy.
Oh, negative
Same.
reinforcement.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Negative reinforcement.
Boom.
I heard a quote yesterday from big-time realtor in Orange County, Tim Smith. He said, people hate losing 9 times more than they like winning.
Totally agree.
I feel that.
You guys ever seen the I play it for myself sometimes, the Kobe video when he was in the playoffs? I can't remember who they were playing. It was the Lakers versus God. I'm a big enough.
Oh, is this the one where he's like, I didn't lose, I ran out of time?
No.
I love
So
that one.
badass.
That's
they win the first 2 games of the playoffs, right? 7-game series. They win the first 2 games, and they are interviewing Kobe, and they're like, "How do you feel that you're up 2-0 in the playoffs?" And he's like, "Job's not done. Job's not done."
There's no celebration until
No.
the job's finished.
Exactly. Job's
Yeah.
not done. Like, you're up 2-0 in the playoffs. How do you feel?
It's like I don't have a ring on my finger yet.
Nope.
Like I
You
didn't
know.
win.
Easy for an athlete to say, but when is the job done for a salesperson?
I mean, I think that's subjective.
No, I think it's important and something that I had to learn over my sales career is to count the wins. Is to like be grateful for and acknowledge when you did win something. And rather than just like, oh, moving on to the next project, it's like, no, I did close a $30,000 deal. I need to reflect on how and why I closed a $30,000 deal, feel pretty good about it, and then move on to the next one. But if I just blow past that, then it's all going to catch up to me at some point, and I'm going to feel tense and like not feel like I'm doing anything good.
I started doing that quarterly. I can't do it on one transaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to do my business quarterly in terms of like my goals. I base everything quarterly. And then in addition to that, I base everything on a 36-month, so I go small scale for me is 90 days. I never do 30. I never do 30.
I love that you said that, because at my previous company, we were on 30-day goals, and
No.
now we're on a quarter. And
Yeah, you gotta go
It opens
quarterly.
a whole nother category. And
Correct.
Like a longer thinking, a longer term funnel. It's just like, one takes a little bit off your plate, but two gives you the potential to make so much more.
Well, in the reverse end of the spectrum is like, so I had a great January this year, right? Came out of the gates, closed 8 transactions in January, right? Which for a single originators, it's a lot of business. It's nothing like crazy, but it's a
8
good
in 1
number.
month is a lot.
Yeah, it's a good. And
It's
so
2 a week. Like,
So what I'm trying to focus on is I want to do 15 in a quarter, which is seriously a super conservative number. It's not. I would like to do more than that, but I don't like to also set goals that are unattainable.
Right.
Right. So it's like, okay, if I can do 15 in a quarter, that's a good number. I obviously want to exceed that, but like, if I do 15 a quarter, I'm like, I'm not mad at myself, right? And so I came out of the gate and I did 8. And I think a lot of people, if we did it monthly, they'd be like, I'm a fucking rock star. Yeah, they're going to coast, right? And I'm like, no, I still got to do another 7 transactions. And then I ended up following it with another 7 transactions. So I've already hit my goal for the quarter, but I'm like, then I do my 36 month.
36 month, exactly.
Right. And I'm like,
Bigger scope.
because
scope.
the one thing about, the one thing about this business is like, you can have these monster years, which was basically like 2020 and 2021. And I saw agents doing this where I try to get agents to advertise with me a lot. And in 2020 and 2021, when I was like, hey, we should spend some money, they were like, why would I spend any money?
I'm blowing out the
It's
water
all my
right now.
sphere of influence. Like, I'm the man or the woman, and why would I spend any money when I've got the money coming in? And I'm like, what are you going to do on your 36-month goal? Like, do you think it's going to be like this forever? And sure enough, 2022, 2023. And if you look at, and I would love for you to do this, like not live because it would be hard, but like I would love for you to take your 2020 to 2023 production, divide it by 3, and then make that your annual goal, right? Because that is a good metric. Because I remember when I met you, you're like, I came out of the gates, I came here and I just fucking crushed it. It was fucking amazing. And then you had a tough year the following year, and you still did really good, all things considered. I mean, let's be real. I don't want to take anything away from you.
Nah, but when you compare it to 2021,
right,
and then 2023,
right, and then you take the average and go, okay,
drastic difference.
so just to use round numbers, I mean, if you came out of 2020 and did, 10 million, then you did 6, then you did 5. We're looking at 19 million. You divide that by 3. It's like that's a $6 million year. It's not unrealistic to say, well, you know what? I'm gonna shoot for 6 million, maybe a 20% increase. I'm gonna shoot for 8 million this year. I know there's real estate agents out there right now that would be like, you only want to do 8 million? You're like, of course I want to do more than 8 million. But that is a realistic goal based on my 3-year metric. And like, I think a lot of people get out of this business because they do have like a $20 million year, and then they end up with like 8 the next year, and they're like, maybe it's not for me. And then they start to get in their fucking head, and they.
Well, they take that success and think I can translate that success into a different industry. And it's like, no, there's going to be ups and downs in every industry that you're in. Take the wins and take the losses. What did you learn from both, and capitalize on it in the next year? Look at it 36 months rather than a year. I really like that.
I mean, in this business, so they say in this business, we operate from 7 to 10 year cycles. And this is my 4th economic downturn, right? And I got a really nasty comment on a clip where I said this is my fourth economic downturn. And someone was like, fourth economic downturn? What the fuck are you talking about? There have been 4 economic downturns. I'm like, yes, there has. Just because they aren't like depressions doesn't mean it's not a fucking downturn. This is my 4th economic downturn. There was 08, there was 12, there was 16, and there was technically
2020.
It was between 22 and 23. It wasn't 2020.
The
2020
residual effects of
2020 was an economic downturn, but it was a great year
for real estate.
And it's my 4th economic, because we don't technically count 2020. I mean, it was technically it would be 5. We were talking about it because we had the COVID hit, but that was like bing, bing, like it was just like a blip. And yeah, I think about it a lot, and I see people get down on themselves. And I also see people do dumb shit where they're like, I'm doubling my production because I doubled it the year before. And it's like, that is not how this business works. Like, you don't get into this business, close $5 million worth of business, do $10 million the next year, and then the next year you think you're going to do 20? Like, come on. Like,
Well, how many real estate agents are actually doing 20?
Right now?
Yeah.
Very few.
Here
But
in
even
Austin.
like in 2020 when it was hot, how many people were doing 20 million?
I would say
I-
7%, maybe 5 to 7%.
I would say it's closer to like 2%. We have 27,000 agents in Austin.
Yeah, but
I
come
mean,
on. You know that like
I
80%
feel like only
of them don't do anything.
I feel like only like 500 of them actually work.
That's true. I'll give you that. And then the other caveat of it is, just for the record, is you've got these teams where everything goes under one agent's name, and I don't like that either. But like I would relate it to like what we call like single agents. You know, because when I gave my stats, I gave them as a single agent. I have other loan officers, and I never pitch my like branch production, although I am compensated from it. It's not my production. It's production that I am compensated on. But
no, I mean the advertiser I'm talking about, a real estate agent here in Austin that spends an exorbitant amount of money on advertising.
Chris Waters.
Exactly.
Hey.
I didn't want to like shout
Chris
him
Waters
out.
International Realty.
Shout out to
I
Chris Waters.
actually love Chris Waters. Super nice guy.
I've
And
never
he
met
told
him.
me he told me an interesting statistic when he came and visited me one time at the office. He's like, of the 27,000 realtors in Austin, 80% of them don't even sell a home, and the ones
that's true.
that have sold a home, they've only sold one. The amount that have actually sold 2 homes in a year are minuscule. It's like 3%.
Well, everything.
You know what's the best part of that quote? I told you that.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, here's
Chris
a fun,
Waters didn't say that.
Here's a fun fact that
No, but he said it. He did.
I
come in and
repeated it louder.
I mean, here's a fun fact that I think is true about almost everything. Every time I try to fucking like squash it or whatever, it always just rings true. Is the 80-20 rule is a real thing, and 80% of agents are only doing 20% of the business, and 20% are doing the other 80. And of that 20%, you 80-20 that.
Yeah,
like
that's actually doing real output.
Right. So you've got 20% of agents doing 80% of the business, and then 20% of those. So when you think about it, if you do that math, it goes back to my like 7%. Like you really have like 7, debatably 5% of real estate agents are what I would consider like heavy hitters.
What separates those heavy hitters from the rest of the 80%?
Two things. Number one is the ability. So you've got true salespeople that understand the way to sell, the way to market, the way to do all the things. And then the second part of it, and this is something that I'm terrible at, and I'm basically about to give up because it's just not me. The other part of it is there are people out there that are phenomenal at managing people. And they are I've tried. I'm at the point in my career, I've tried it for 15 years where they're phenomenal at empowering people, managing them, and they make money on that.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think you can't lead people in a certain way?
I can tell you why. I mean, I can tell you why I think it is. I don't know if it's the answer, because if
have you gotten feedback from the people you manage?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you my why I think it is. I don't know if it's the case, because if it was, I'd figure it out. I think that the reason that I'm bad at managing people, and I know this is going to sound corny, but the reality is I think I'm too transparent. So I think I'm too transparent in the sense of like, I'm going to tell you that there is a very small possibility that you are going to like come out of the gates and make a shitload of money. And because of that, there are other people that are going to tell you that you're going to come out of you're going to be a superstar. And so that's step one. So I don't capitalize on hiring as many people as I possibly could because other people go and work because people want to believe what anyone is going to like. If you go to one guy and he says, "Hey, listen, this is going to be a grind. You're probably not going to make really good money for at least a year or two, and you're going to have to work 8 to 10 hours a day. It's going to be very difficult. You're going to have to join a kickball team. You're going to have to do all of this stuff." And people are like, fuck that. And then they go to the other guy and they're like, oh, it's going to be so easy. Like, you work a sphere of influence. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. It's going to be simple. They go and they work for him. So I lose out on like 70% of like the people I interview because I'm honest. And then the people that actually do come and work for me, they get in, they get involved, and I'll use the 80-20 rule. 80% of them just weren't cut out for it.
Yeah.
And then I capitalize. So I already lose 70% of the new hires. And then the ones that I get, I'm only able to capitalize on 20% of them. And then like any business, I mean, here's the let's be honest, like if there's a true rock star that I actually am able to capitalize on, it's very short-lived because
then they go do their own thing.
Correct.
They go on to a new opportunity.
Correct.
But like something that you said is rather than setting them up for the reality of what they're going to face, I feel like if my boss in my previous company had set me up for the reality of what I was going to be facing in my day-to-day job, I would have quit before I even started. But they were like, you're going to go out there, people are going to love what you have to offer.
That's my problem.
Just do that though.
Just get them
It's
jacked.
it's not even a lie because the possibility is I did that. I did everything that my boss said it was going to happen. And then in retrospect, looking back and I see other people that started at the same time as me, they did not.
And that's my hang up because I relate it to like.
But why worry about the people who are going to fail?
Yeah.
The people who are going to do good for you are the ones that are going to win.
Well, because I relate it to the workout thing where it's like, you know, you see these workout things. It's like, hey, listen, if you follow all of these steps, you're gonna be jacked and you're gonna be in shape. And it's like, everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then when they don't succeed, it's never because of
They didn't succeed yet.
Right. I got to bring in a guest. I can hear her.
Oh, a little puppy dog? I can hear a little whining.
Oh, is this a Dober Pinscher?
Pony, come on. Pony, come on.
A dog named Pony.
I used to have a cat named Penguin, so who am I to speak?
Chase, I'm curious.
This is a Dober Pinscher.
Dober Pinscher.
Am I right?
I'm curious, Chase. When you started the job at Fly Homes, how did they frame it to you? Did they do it
Oh,
that
poorly.
way, or were they like, oh, you're gonna go out there and like
Pony,
you're gonna take your $20,000 a month budget a month and like turn it into a bunch of business, or they're like, oh, it's gonna be really hard?
You know, I tell you what, they gave me absolutely zero guidelines. And in the beginning, I thought this was the worst thing ever, but maybe it was the best thing ever because this dog is
You had your fun.
So when I first began this job, they didn't tell me how to do it. Nobody had really done it correctly. There was a guy that was in the position before me, and this guy had a whole pedigree of experience. He had 5 years as head of Asian sales of Facebook and 4 years of head of global sales at Spotify before joining Flyhouse. I was taking his job because he was moving to be in corporate sales for Starbucks. And here I am, fresh out of college. I knew nothing. They gave me no playbook. They gave me nothing to work with. They said, this is what John's been doing. He's been doing these lunch and learns at companies. He's been going to speak at these trade shows. That's about all he's been doing. But that guy had an ego on him, and he wasn't willing to get dirty and do the scrappy things that I was. I had no problem packing a tent and an ice chest full of drinks in the back of an Uber and going 40 miles away to some festival to hand out Diet Cokes, and, in order to pass out our names. And so I don't even know where I'm going with this.
No, but it seemed like you were on a really good track. It seemed like John thought that he had earned some sort of authority in the industry, and that people wanted to hear John talk. But in reality, John's in a new place with a new product that people haven't heard about. And so they don't want to hear him talk in the scale of like, oh, this is a panel or something like John. People want to hear John talk about the new product face to face with John.
Yeah, so what happened was, since I was willing to get dirty, and I was much more of a people person than he was, despite his pedigree of sales experience, his best month ever, he got the company 8 new clients. My worst month ever, I got the company 21 new clients. So uh, it's just, I think it just comes down to getting out there, meeting people, doing the work. Yeah, that's been like the Tom Ferry slogan for realtors for the last 2 years. It's like, what's been working? Working.
No, that's what John needed to take. Like, he had the lifestyle creep. Like, it's really great to be successful at Facebook and the other companies that he was successful for, but you have to continue to be successful to hold on to the title and the prestige that John had. And even me in my short sales career at Waterloo Media, when I was the top digital builder in the company, I kind of like sat back for like 3 weeks. And then like I turned around after the 3 weeks and was like, oh shit, I haven't been filling my sales funnel. I don't have new business coming in. And then I had a big advertiser just pull out. And then I was like, oh shit, I haven't been doing the consistent work that I've been doing the whole time to get me to this position. And then I was like, I have to be consistent the whole time. There is no break in filling the sales funnel ever.
I will speak to that because when I first moved here in fall of 2020, I was going to networking events every single day. In 2021, I had a huge book of business. Well, I finished with all those clients by the start of 22, and I hadn't been refilling that book. I was celebrating that I was winning. Here and there, referral would come from it, but I wasn't grinding like I was going to all these networking events and stuff. So, come the end of 22, business fell down tremendously, which continued through 2023 because I hadn't been putting in all that work because, and I think each different marketing channel has a different timeline of when the results are going to come back. The things I do, those results are not immediate by any means, unless I just hit someone at the right point where they've already been considering buying a house. And eventually, I mean, it happens here and there. But yeah, maybe something like Yelp, if you're a services company, well, that probably has a pretty fast timeline. Something like doing home buying classes. Well, chances are these are people who are kind of thinking about it. But me making a neighborhood guide PDF, these are people who are considering moving to California 5 years from now. I don't know. So,
which is like, I think the point of it is that there is no stop in the hustle of being a salesperson.
Exactly. You just
as long as you want to hold the title of a salesperson or a real estate agent, like you can't. There's no faking. I'm still having a cold call. Like,
yeah,
there's no getting past that as a salesperson. I really don't think that there's ever a point where you're just like, oh, referrals are great, but no one can live off of referrals.
Well, I think about it this way. Like, I run into, so it reminds me of my, one of my top sales guys in Cleveland where we started off and he knew. So going back to like the way that I would hire, I told him all of the dirty and I said, it's going to take a while. And he got it and he got his hands dirty. He was calling, he was doing all the things. And maybe this is where I made a mistake. In his mind, he felt like once we get to the point where you have like a sphere of influence and you're getting a referral business, like it's going to be there. But then the market takes a turn. And in his mind, he was like, I already did the work.
Yeah.
Right. I did the work. And it's like, dude, it ebbs and flows. And there are markets where like if you're a seasoned agent, you can capitalize on your referral business and all of that and maybe hire assistants and do all of the things, but like there's always going to be a time.
But the caveat is it's a never-ending grind, but at the same time, the more you do the grind, the more you pick up the phone and call people and develop business, it's so much easier. Like my spiel just comes out. Like the objection, I hear it, I have an answer for it.
Well, they say a good salesman practices his pitch until he gets it right. A great salesman knows his pitch so he never gets it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it becomes second nature at a certain point.
And, the thing I going back to, thinking that you're going to make it and you're going to, it's the one thing I think about, like we talked about this before we were on the podcast, we talked about it today. The amount of money that we're paid as salespeople, I think what we trade is we trade a guaranteed salary
Yeah.
for the potential of a big bump, right?
Mhm.
And what kills me a lot is it's like if you really think about it from a sales standpoint and you're like, my average commission, let's just say your average commission is $5,000, right? Whatever it takes you to get to that $5,000, when you really roll it back, and you should know this number as a salesperson, like how many hours do I have to put in to achieve a 5,000, we're just using 5 grand, a $5,000 commission. And when you really roll it back, you're like, holy shit, like if I really put in a solid 40 hours a week, I'll make 5 grand. I'll make 5 grand. Like, and I think the hard part for people is like, you might put in a 40-hour work week and make 0. And then you put in another 40-hour work week and you make 10. Well, that's 5 grand a week.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I got to work 80 hours to make 10. What if you get a $30,000 commission? Is it safe to say that you would work 3 straight weeks for no income? Every week you come home and you're like, hey, babe, I just worked a 40-hour work week. Like, great. What'd you make? You're like 0. And then the next week, come home tired, 40-hour work week. What'd you make this week? 0. But we all talk about the just fucking close the big deal.
Yeah.
$30,000. Just made 30 grand. And like that's the part that I remind myself of because it's like I think this is
You're a pessimist.
it's not even pessimism. I mean, here's what I'm going to say something profound, or at least I think it is. Maybe I've had too many Guinnesses. I think that the one thing that separates good salespeople from bad salespeople is the ability to work really, really hard with the possibility that you will make no money in that interim of time. But you're building for something, right? Because I think in this day and age, we are conditioned to say, if I work really hard, I get something, right?
You get a gold medal. You get a blue ribbon.
Well, I wouldn't even go that far. But, like, I worked really hard this week. I deserve something.
Mhm.
Going back to kind of my analogy, it's like, I worked really fucking hard this week and I have nothing to show for it. And it's like, yeah. And then I worked really hard next week and I still have nothing to show for it. And then people go, you know what, fuck it, I'm out.
Mhm.
Because I just worked 2 weeks for $0. And in this day and age of instant gratification, we think that every ounce of energy that we produce should automatically reap us some sort of return. I mean, there's business owners that'll tell you, you know, one thing, at one point in time, I almost bought a bar
Mhm.
and an Irish bar called
Oh.
Sullivan's.
Good name.
And I remember sitting with the commercial real estate agent who flat out told me that most bars do not become profitable for 2 years. 2 years. And that's if you're doing it right. Most bars fail in 2 years, right? And I was like, okay, 2 years, like, can I go 2 years without a paycheck? I'm going to invest. At the time, it was a $40,000 initial investment. I wasn't able to own the building. I was purchasing the liquor license. And I was like, all right, 40 grand, I buy the liquor license. I have to pay rent to the building. And I got to pay back this $40,000. And this is Sullivan's, right? So I can't sell like $14 fucking martinis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm selling like,
Your profit margin's really low.
correct. I'm selling Guinnesses and, baseball. Like,
Yeah.
come and watch the Indians, the Cleveland
Mozzarella
Indians.
sticks. Yeah.
Correct. And I'm like, okay. And being in sales, I was willing to do that. It didn't work out, but I guess, again, going back to, it could just be sales, it could be business, but I just think most people do not